Hello to all the Atlanta United fans. My name is Jurgen Damm, and you are watching Scarves and Spike, an Atlanta United podcast.
What's going on, everybody? It is another episode of Scarves and Spikes. Tyler, Tommy, and Henry here with you guys this evening. What's going on, y'all?
I had to laugh because the first one of the first comments in here is about Jurgen Damm. So you can't have a Wednesday show without a Jurgen Damm reference, right?
Cannot get away from it.
No,
he's eternal. He always catches up.
Happy Wednesday.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful Wednesday.
It is a wonderful Wednesday. I'm going to go ahead and address the elephant in the room really quick before we get our very special guest on.
Jurgen Damm?
Not Jurgen Damm.
Okay.
We're coming in hot. Yes, I'm wearing sunglasses. No, I'm not a douchebag. I'm not a tool. I woke up this morning and my eye was halfway swollen shut. I don't know. I think it's like a sty, and I refuse to come on to our live show. I look like if y'all have ever played Animal Crossing and you get stung by the bees, that's what I look like right now. So,
I thought you just watched all the Terminator movies last night and just got really into it.
No, this is so anyway, I promise this is not a bit. I'm not doing this like whatever. It looks really bad, and I refuse to give in to the ugliness beyond what I already have going on here. So
we've all been there.
We've been there. Yeah, it's okay. So, normally, obviously we would talk about some things, lead up to it, get the guest on, and then we'll dive into it. But we're doing it a little reverse today. So, before we, dive into the rest that's going on in Atlanta United world, let's go ahead and get our very, very special guest from MLS Season Pass, Calen Carr, in here with us.
What's up, guys?
You doing all right?
Hey there.
How's it going?
Hey.
Good. I don't know if you
great.
heard my whole spill.
I just saw the glasses. I was like, the shades are cool. Don't over explain it. Like,
yeah. Okay.
It's a vibe, just say, hey, I'm vibing out.
At 7:00 at night, this is what I do. Carry on.
It's the
So I
vibe.
just had an eye injury myself. I was playing co-ed soccer, and I smashed the ball off the goalkeeper. It came back into my eye, and then went into the goal, which that part was unbeknownst to me, which was good luck, I guess. But I had to get my eyes checked out like all last week. I'm good to go. I'm cleared for the season. But the eye injury, I'm with you. You got to do what you got to do. Take care of yourself. Look after yourself. And they look cool.
I appreciate it.
Hey, Calen, I just want to say, I'm sad Extra Time is gone, and you were one of the favorite voices. You were always a very pro Atlanta United fan. Maybe even when it wasn't cool to be pro Atlanta United. After those first couple of years, it kind of went downhill a little bit. Now we're on the way back up, but it was a great podcast, and I don't know how many years it was on, but it was a fantastic show. So congratulations on all the success over the years with it.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate that. And the podcast is like long predates me, 15 years. And so I remember even as a player listening to it and then getting invited on a couple times. And I remember being eager to like go on and argue with Simon Borg. And I was like, what is this guy's takes, man? These are crazy. And so then I was on the show, and then people wanted to argue with me. And so it's kind of great. But credit to Andrew Wiebe, David Goss, Matt Doyle, all the guys that had really done the heavy lifting. And I always tried to just hop on and give a former player's perspective. And I think that the good news, we got a lot more exciting content coming this year for MLS Season Pass. And then also, there's really been a big step forward as far as other podcasts going across soccer. And I think fan podcasts are a huge part of that. And you guys know your team best. And so it's cool to have like the sort of dip in. And every time I go call a game, I'm always checking out what the local podcasts are. And so I think it's really important to kind of have the breadth. I'm sad to see it go. I have to be honest, like that there's a pain attached to that. But at the same time, I know that like there's going to be more, and I'm pleased to see more people stepping into the void and doing an amazing job.
Yeah, it was an incredible run for a podcast. Like, I feel like podcasts are barely 15 years old in general.
I mean, our soccer league is like 30 this year, right? So that's halfway. And there aren't many things that are attached to, I'm like a big purveyor and part of soccer culture. And so you think of how long things tend to last as a shelf life. And maybe that's even the knock sometimes of like, hey, this is brand new. And maybe the exciting part too of Atlanta United is now like a heritage club, right? You're throwing like throwback kits almost back to the Five Stripes. Meanwhile, there's brand new clubs coming in San Diego. And so things move and change so fast that it's rare that things can really stand the test of time. So even more of a shout out to those guys for carrying it so long.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you say that because, we always talk about Atlanta is young in the overall soccer sphere, right? Like, MLS in general is young, but Atlanta is not that old. And we'll talk about them in a minute. But the fact that Atlanta has a club legend already coming back is kind of wild to think about in Miguel Almiron.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like, oh, I remember the days growing up with Almiron. And there are going to be supporters that were super young that you remember Almiron coming through and then now see him play at Newcastle and blowing up over there and doing great and now coming back. But yeah, it's I feel like it's going to also feel like nothing changed too, because he's just like, I know he's 30 years old, but the way he plays, he feels young. He feels younger to me. And I think his prime is going to go much further. So I actually think he's going to be even, he was just like scratching the surface even, which was scary. And now to see him developed even further and coming back, I think it's going to be, I can't wait to watch what happens.
So speaking of kind of things that you're excited about, now that we're a couple of weeks away from opening day, 2025 is literally right around the corner. In general, and it doesn't have to be Atlanta based, but what are you most excited about for this season?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like MLS was becoming more predictable for a while. At least that's what I was telling myself, was that maybe there was a bit of chaos always involved, which is part of what we loved. But I was saying, okay, well, now it seems a little bit more predictable where you sort of expect LAFC to get here. The teams that were the best in the regular season were always going deep into the playoffs and getting to the finals. There was like Columbus versus LAFC a few times. There was Toronto versus Seattle for a while. And you could kind of start to predict a bit more. And then this last year happened, and the New York Red Bulls went all the way to MLS Cup. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. And Atlanta United, when everybody had written them off for dead, myself included, went and beat Lionel Messi in the Supporters Shield record-setting point-getting total and company in the playoffs. And it was and then the LA Galaxy win their 6th MLS Cup title when they were in and around it, but it still felt like maybe not quite expected for that to happen when it did. And so I think last year was like a really good reminder of like, okay, maybe hold your horses. Like this, what you think and the steps that we're evolving to are maybe not quite as fully baked as you think. And I think that to me is exciting because we always have ideas of where things are going to go. And right now we're in the mode of preseason predictions and all that. But I think last year was a good reminder that like things are going to change a lot, especially with the markets, the way things have gone just the last week. Cucho Hernandez has gone from to Real Betis and La Liga, and all these transfers going out, people coming in, the World Cup being the next year. So I'd expect even more names to be shifting as the season goes on. And that's why I just keep my phone on. I follow Tom Bogert, make sure that I know exactly what's happening. Sometimes he'll give me a little bit of a tip off in the group chat, but that's the best part, is that it's kind of unexpected. So that's kind of what I've learned over time from MLS.
You talk about this group chat. I got to ask, you have to tell them now you've said that there's a group chat. what is the one that broke it? Was it the Messi officially coming?
Well, that one didn't even make the chat. That was, I think, above the chat's pay grade. But I don't know. The best parts that I actually like about the group chat, if I'm being really honest, are not the like big trades that have or the big signings that come in. It's often the like most minute, like very the chat is called Partners in Soccer from the Extra Time group. So it's stuff that probably is a real deep cut of like some free agency deal or trade for allocation money or something like that comes through that everybody gets really pumped up about. And I used to make fun of those guys for it. And then now I feel like I'm in on the joke and appreciate it. And so it's often those ones that get the best reaction.
Awesome. So getting back to Atlanta United, how do you grade their offseason so far?
I think it's been the most exciting by far. I think I don't know if I would put a letter grade on it, but as far as like looking at the across MLS and who has done the most and is the most interesting story for sure, I think it's Atlanta. And it's, for me, I think there was a little bit of some surprise that maybe things were taking a while, because when I think of Atlanta, it was like their patience is not an adjective that I would use often when it comes to Atlanta United. And I mean that as a compliment. But I was sort of surprised that, kind of sitting on quite a number of outbound transfers. There weren't necessarily a direct replacement coming in for Giacomakis or Almada. And I think that's partly why everybody was like, well, yeah, wait till next year. But what I really liked about the team that I think has now put them ahead of schedule in a way was Rob Valentino. I think deserves a lot of credit for what he did. Really kind of pushed this group forward alongside a lot of the guys on the team, and maybe some addition by subtraction, backs against the wall. And you saw what ended up happening down the stretch and then into the playoffs. And so then you start looking at it and you're like, okay, now the arms race really begins with, and I think probably one of the underrated ones was Chris Henderson coming. Ton of respect for him and his relationship with Garth. And so you start seeing these minds kind of reconvening here with Arthur Blink's sort of backing, of course, and you really start to begin to trust exactly what's happening. And then since then, it's kind of been one name after the next. And I think from there, you're now starting to look at, really one of the more scary attacks for sure you can think of in MLS. There's some pretty scary ones. The Galaxy are up there, went all the way to the championship. Some Columbus, Cincinnati, a lot of ones, but Atlanta United has firmly put themselves in that conversation at this point from this offseason. So that part has definitely been exciting for me.
Yeah, and like one of the craziest things is, going into decision day, the vibes around this team were terrible, right? Like they had, I forget what the percentage was, chance of making the playoffs. They do it, and then it's like, okay, well, now they got to go beat Joseph Martinez in Montreal, right? Yeah. You do that, then you got to go short rest to Miami. And once Sean De Silva scores that game winner in game 2, the city was all of a sudden back behind it. It was like 2020 to 2024 did not happen. It was like we were back to 2019. And then it was like, well, they have to build on it, right? They have to build on it. And you're right. The fans were getting anxious, right? We were all getting anxious. It's like, all right, when we got 2 DP spots, are they going to get filled? And it's been a week. We've got 2 awesome, announcement videos, and people are going crazy again. And it's exciting.
I mean, I was doing that. You mentioned that Montreal wildcard game. I was on the call with Callum Williams. And I remember thinking that whoever wins this game is walking into a buzzsaw. It was kind of like, all right, well, MLS is more predictable now. We've seen the way this has gone. The wildcard games, expanded field, 8-9 going against each other for the chance to play against Lionel Messi. And, oh, yeah, cool. You get to see Messi in the playoffs and knockout rounds, but also it's Messi in knockout rounds. Like, who wants any piece of that? And that matchup was great between the two. You mentioned Joseph and Brad Guzan going after it. Like that was like such a great subplot to watch live and to commentate on. But even still afterwards, I was like, man, that was really big. And then Brooks Lennon goes down injured. And I'm like, okay, this is like your primary chance creator in a lot of ways. And then it was like, oh, it's Saba time. And so the personality started to shine through in the group. And what I really like from that is like from being on teams in the past, and I think even Atlanta United had to go through some tough learnings in the past. When you think of that first year where they got knocked out, had that amazing season, get knocked out by Columbus in penalties, and you get to the playoffs and it's the first time you haven't really been there as a group. You get punched in the mouth. It took that learning to the next year to then carry that forward with that kind of playoff sweat on you. And I've been on teams that had to kind of learn the hard way before you kind of get over the top or get deep in the playoffs. And so I think in some ways, a lot of this group has learned a lot to be able to, like, who Amador is now. He has done it, been there, done that, his service, the balance between him and Lennon now on each side, and that this group could be able to have some of that playoff sweat. And then you add in Almiron, and then you add in Mateusz Klich, and what he brings, how this group then adds with Miranchuk to make him feel a little bit better and to get the best out of him. And then you add in Latte, who's got that pace up top to really stretch the field. And you start to see how these puzzle pieces start to fit together. But I think they kind of skipped a step by being able to get that playoff experience and success last year, so that you have a better chance when you add these pieces. You have a much better look at, like, hey, this isn't it's year one for this group, but Almiron's lifted MLS Cup. Ronnie Dyla's lifted MLS Cup. You're starting to see, like, maybe this team can skip a step instead of having this brand new formation where you make a ton of changes, but you don't really know how it's all going to fit together on the pitch.
Hey, Calen, you just talked about, Almiron getting that MLS Cup, and he's right back in Atlanta, back home. So I kind of, you already alluded to this a little bit at the beginning of the show, but, going overseas and then coming back 6 years later, he's 6 years older, and there's been a little bit of chat about, okay, well, attacking players, specifically wingers, they can sometimes, their performance kind of goes down with age. How is that going to affect Miggy? But on the other hand, he spent 6 years in the Premier League, one of, if not, the best league in the world. So what do you think that time, how does that all kind of, how's that all going to affect him this season coming back to MLS?
It's a good question. I think the thing, I think you can look at it as sort of, and I know like a lot of the scouts will probably look at it and say, okay, well, if you take X amount of minutes from this league, how does that translate to there, or this league coming back to here? And I think some of it also just comes down to the guy and their personality or their traits. And like the one thing that I know about Almiron is, like, I don't care if this guy's playing in MLS, the Premier League, the park, like this, the way that he plays is just like all out, end to end, like roadrunner football, soccer. And so, and sometimes
they called him the ostrich when he was here the first time. He ran like an ostrich.
Really, that was my college nickname, was the ostrich. I was nowhere near Almiron, but
Calen
Ostrich Carr.
Yeah, but sometimes lighter guys, I ended up having injuries, and so when I hit my 30s, I did my ACL, and I had some bigger injuries, so that started to wear on me a little bit. And he's been really durable, and so I just think like some of that, and some guys play longer and lighter, and just make it further. I think of like a guy like DeMarcus Beasley, or some guys like that end up just having that kind of longevity where they're able to play and go. And, I think from Almiron's case, like 30 he's like a young 30, and now a very experienced one. And so he was the one guy that I remember watching in Atlanta, and I was at the final, but I was at games before that. I was at that first game at Bobby Dodd against New York City. My wife's family's from Atlanta, so I spent a lot of time there. He was even there this off season, and I was down in Little 5 Points at what's the bar in Little 5?
Brew House.
I was at the Brew House watching Premier League games in the morning. But I remember bringing her family to that first game at Bobby Dodd, and it was pretty funny because her family's not really like soccer people, but they showed up, and I remember her dad being like, "Who's that guy?" And that was the thing of like, if you had never been to an Atlanta United game before, you'd never even been to a soccer game before. If you watch Miguel Almiron play, you're going to be like, who is that guy? And it's, and I just think that that's one of the more special, unique things. And even as I see Cucho leaving or maybe Lucho leaving, and I start thinking about who would I spend my money to go watch, that would be the guy that I would pay money to go and be like, hey, go watch this guy play. You will get your money's worth. And I think that's more the like high energy, high octane side that we saw at the end at the Benz. But that's what I think from the outside, it seems like the fans really respond to. And what a better piece to bring back than that.
Speaking of spending money, MLS clubs can now spend money on trades. They don't have to use GAM. Get out of here with that. They could just use cash, man. So with this new rule, we've already seen a few cash transfers in MLS. Jovic to Sporting Kansas City, Jack McGlynn to the Houston Dynamo. I mean, what do you think of this rule in general? And are the deals being made right now are any like surprising to you?
I mean, I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of that, because I'm like, well, I wonder if, if it will. We still want to see outbound transfers, right? And I think, even who you mentioned, like I could see Jack McGlynn going soon abroad still, and maybe just Houston is a better fit for him to raise his profile and fits that system a little better than the way Philly is changing. And maybe it allows guys, I still think of it like, as a player, you want to be in the best spot, and you want to be in a system that fits you well. And so more motion, more mobility, more opportunities to get to a place that fits for you is a positive from the player's perspective. From the club's perspective, it's a positive because you're getting a proven commodity. Sporting Kansas City has like tried a bunch of different strikers over the years, but they maybe haven't quite hit, and then they have to move guys on. And now it's like, you've seen what Jovic can do. Lifted MLS Cup. Was the leading scorer through the playoffs. So there's less risk involved in that. And then from the fan side, the positive that I see it as is sometimes I meet people that are fans of their team, but maybe don't quite understand the intricacies of every other team. And that's not a knock. It's just like they care more about their fan than their club than maybe the others. But if you know that you're going to go get the guy who just scored the MLS Cup, scored an MLS Cup, or that your club is going to be in the market more where, okay, yeah, he's our striker now. He was their striker last season, but he's our striker now, like the Luka Doncic, sort of trade. Though that to me starts to create a larger conversation where there's movement within the clubs, and star players from one team are now star players from that team or poached from another team. You're making a case, and that's happening a little bit in free agency, but generally the free agents are not always, maybe outside of maybe Miles Robinson, sorry guys, they're not always like the biggest name stars always once they get to that point where now it's like, okay, I'm hearing rumors, is Evander on the move? Are clubs going after him? Are Lucho Acosta? Can Atlanta entice some people to come down the road? So I think that piece of it is just starting to kind of happen, and I think that makes it much more interesting for everyone.
I mean, it kind of keeps things in-house a little bit. And I think, you talk about Lucho and potentially, and Cucho, definitely. But like, these guys that it doesn't matter. It's going to be a long time before any player ever intentionally chooses staying in MLS at their age over maybe going to Europe, whether it's, Real Betis or whoever. Because once you get to Europe, I think it's a lot easier to say, all right, I'm in Europe now. It's a little easier to move around. Maybe I do make it to an even bigger club. But this kind of helps MLS capture some talent and maybe keep them here, because if they are unhappy with their club or the club has to move on from them or whatever, they can still stay in the same country. They can still stay in the same league.
Yeah, and maybe put yourself in a better spot, like I was saying with McGlynn or Jovic. He's in the last year of his deal. Maybe he puts himself in an even better spot where, hey, this club has more flexibility to give me the deal that I want down the road if I do well this season. And if not, I'm in the shop window for another club in Europe, and maybe this is a better path for me to get where I want to ultimately be. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just more options is a positive, and the fan part of like following other teams potentially to like poach players from them is a newer thought that I've had of like, oh, that would be more interesting as far as like growing the fan base or growing the interest across the league, where you're watching players because you're like, hey, we might be able to get them on our club.
Yeah. So we have a couple more questions for you. I don't want to keep it too long. I wanted to ask one from the chat real quick though, kind of going back to, I know we're jumping all around, but going back to Miggy. Omar was asking, because we've had our opinions about this. If Atlanta fans have had their opinions, you have Saba Lobjanidze, who can play on both sides. Now you've got Miguel Almiron coming back. Where do you see Miggy excelling?
That's a good question. I mean, it's interesting because there's a number of pieces now that can kind of move around. Like Mateusz Klich is a guy that can play a number of different spots on the pitch. Miranchuk has been used in a few different places. I think he's better in the middle. And I think he's going to be able to find it. I think Latte is the one that kind of changes everything from the standpoint of like having that piece at the spear to open up space for everyone. And then you allow some space and freedom for Lobjanidze and Almiron to kind of find space underneath and to drive forward and get out in transition. And then you have those two wing backs that can bomb forward. So, yeah, I think Almiron is probably maybe a little bit on the right, but coming in on that left foot. But he's also been used in the middle at times. He can play a number of different spots. And I think the idea is less about where he starts than where he finds pockets of space to get out in transition, and then how he builds those relationships. But I think the best part is like these pieces make sense, you know, and you already know what they are. And so I think part of the issue with Atlanta United's build before, and I think the shift from what I'm seeing with Lagerwey and Chris Henderson is more like they're getting players where they're not like, and this is no shade, but it's like the younger players, they're still young. They're 19, they're 21. You're trying to figure out who they are, how they fit into the system, where they want to play, and the pieces around. Look at the profile of these players. 20, I think, how Emmanuel Latte is what, 26?
6 or 7.
Yeah, 26. Almiron's 30. Like, these are proven commodities in their prime. And I think that's exactly where Garth said he was going to search, was guys where you can be here for a while. They're not necessarily going to move right away. They're here for a while. You can build around them. And then you get a guy like, I think they're going to make Miranchuk much better, because he's not the type of guy that you look at and you say, okay, well, I'm trying to think of an example, like a Hani Mukhtar, where he just gets the ball and he just is a one-man counter-attacking. He's like scanning the field. He's looking everywhere around him. He has great vision. He can hit a banger, right? Like, he's done that from outside the box, but that's not his that sort of just comes casually to him. And he's mostly going to find like the subtle pass or the little slip ball or the ball in behind, but you really need those pieces around him. And I think now you're starting to see how those pieces can kind of like Lobjanidze even, it's like not all on you to make the game. It's like you're now the X factor or like the third option, which is scary, right? Because he's handled the pressure already in big moments, but it's not all on him to like create something, because Amador is coming around him and Lennon's coming around the other side. And so I think the pieces fit, and it's a much more known commodity situation.
For sure.
All right, last question. It comes from our intern Jonathan, and I'm not going to hold you to it, but I am going to write it down. And at the end of the season, we're going to bring it up. So, how many goals does Latte Lath score this year?
Ooh, this is a league record transfer. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right.
By like 6 million, I think, close to it. So,
yeah. So,
so as much pressure is on him
Yeah, I was gonna
we're
say.
putting a lot of pressure on you to tell us how many
There's
goals.
no
he's
pressure
gonna
on me
score.
at this point. Yeah, I was traded for not that much. How about that? So I would say, I don't know. It's tough. I feel like the bar in general, if I'm setting it for like the now modern, like big signing strikers, like 18 is I think would be the line. But now that I just thought of the record, I'm like, okay, we got to push that to 20. So that would be where I would set the line for him. But with the type of attack that's around him, I don't know. It could get scary. I don't think anybody's hit those numbers since Joseph was in town. At least that I can remember. I guess Yakimakis got up there. He got up there in the high teens. Did he
He
get over?
pushed it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say, I mean, he had the potential for sure. But yeah, I would say somewhere around there seems like the right place to focus on.
And that's fair, right? But I mean, because you don't want to put too much pressure on the guy, but at the same time, you are now the guy. Like you've got the news around you, you've got the record, incoming transfer fee, all this other stuff. Like you do have to kind of live up to the expectation. So like it is fair to say you're a designated player. One, you're the most expensive designated player to come in. In terms of an actual transfer fee. You've got to be up in the big numbers, especially considering what you have around you.
Yeah, and considering the style of play. Like if this were a team that was set up for me and you're saying, okay, look, ultimately this team is about defending and is set up to like, we have more like a Nashville, where they're like, and I know their defense wasn't where it was in years past, but in their better years or where you're saying, okay, maybe we're not going to really push forward as much as that. Then I'm like, okay, fine. But this is a different situation for me where, this team wants to get out and go. And especially at home, that's what the pressure and the environment is going to just continue to feed that. So I think those opportunities and the pieces around him are going to create opportunities for him. So yeah, I think you can hold him to it. If it doesn't happen, don't come back looking for me.
We won't hold you to it.
I wrote it down in my journal, so it's there forever.
We're coming back to it.
Deal.
Calen, and we appreciate it. When you're down here, I know there's some things going on where y'all are going to be calling games remotely and maybe some not, but when you're in Atlanta, let us know.
Oh man, I'm coming down. I've got to make it to Atlanta. I've been there a bunch. I mentioned my family connection there now. But the unique soccer culture for me is like unprecedented. Even when I'm back in town around the holidays, I'm stopping my wife on the street. We're walking down the Beltway or the Beltline. And I'm like, you don't understand. There's not like there's not graffiti on the street. There's not like drink specials. This is not normal. What's happening? The yards, like this is, and so I travel a lot of places and it's pretty unique. I am interested to see what that opening day tifo looks like. So I'm keeping tabs on that. If you guys catch wind, I'm curious because I'm sure that's going to be a special one.
Yeah. Keep us in mind. They're working on it. They're already working on it. I know that for sure.
Love it.
So it'll be awesome.
Cool. Thanks,
awesome,
guys.
We appreciate it, man.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks for coming
Have
on.
a good season.
See you, man.
Catch you guys soon.
Cool.
Calen Carr, everyone.
Calen Carr. Good stuff, man. It's funny because we do these shows every Wednesday, and we almost always have a guest from MLS or from the Atlanta United sphere, whatever. But Calen has the what are you doing?
I don't know, just playing
Zooming
around.
in and out. No, Calen is the first one for 2025. Right? Because we don't want to like dive into it in the beginning when it's like, oh, this is just preseason. What is there to talk about? But yeah, this phenomenal offseason so far. And like you said, Calen is always like the guy that was like kind of pushing for Atlanta a little bit when everybody else was like, Atlanta's going to get destroyed by Lionel Messi. So I'm glad he was the first one that got to come on this year. That was awesome.
So clearly he's predicting that Atlanta's going to win the Supporters Shield, right? I think he said that in the pre-show, right?
I heard it. I don't know if
Oh
y'all
yeah.
did.
For sure. Trust my
So-
sources.
I got asked a question about the face that's next to me over here.
Yeah.
Omar asked. That is my favorite hockey player, Teemu Solani.
I learned something new today.
And when he was retiring, they had this, or when he was rumored of being retiring, that was kind of like a mini tifo that they had in the stadium asking where he was. It's a milk carton with his face on it. And the guy that created it sent it out to me because I was a rare Ducks fan in Ohio. So the little mini hockey tifos in my basement. The more you know.
Yeah, learned something new today. I did not know that. All right, so we're gonna dive into a lot of stuff. We will talk about Latte Lath because that was official. Finally, we'll go into Orlando as much as we possibly can. Orlando, that was a completely closed door match. So I know everybody's been like looking for information on it. Don't get your hopes up. There's a lot out there because it was not meant to be that way. Teams will have these kind of like completely shut off matches at least once in the preseason. And I think this is that one for Atlanta, but and then we'll dive into New England, and I will be down in Florida, in Bradenton for the New England match. So it, unless something goes awry, because the resources they have down there are not the best, but that should be streamed. But regardless, I'll be down there. I'll be tweeting. I'll have articles coming out. So y'all make sure you follow on Scarves and Spikes social media. Parzival, I appreciate it. I have not changed my eyewear since I was on soccer down here this morning. But we have a lot of really, really cool news coming out now and over the next couple of weeks. We're going to be announcing stuff a lot over the next, really into the season, the beginning of the season.
Henry's growing a beard. That's announcement
there it is.
one. It's one. We've been talking to him about it for a couple of years, and he said, "This is my time."
This is how it goes down.
So that's announcement one.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't want to spoil it, Henry.
You're getting there.
Yeah,
a little bit of.
Still got a little bit to go, but
Little
yeah,
bit of fluff.
things are about to get a bit hairy.
And he's got the dad jokes. He's ready.
Hey,
He's ready.
Yeah.
you know it's me. Come on.
If you didn't shave up all the way until opening day, you think you'd have a little anything there?
I mean, maybe a little bit. I mean, I once went a couple of weeks without shaving, and then like this whole thing kind of filled out a little bit, but it was like barely. I just shaved it off because it was like it was not enough to call it a beard. Let's just say that.
You'll get
there one day.
You'll get there.
Appreciate it.
So anyway, one of our announcements, and I'm gonna share my screen here in a second to let you guys see some stuff. But as y'all know, we launched the new podcast feed, the audio feed, which if you're not already subscribed on it, even if that's not how you listen to us, go to a podcatcher of your choice, whatever you want to use, and search Scarves and Spikes and Atlanta United podcast. Find the new feed, subscribe to it, take a screenshot, share it on social media, tag us in it, and that will enter you into a chance to win a $25 gift card. It's a thing we've got going on for the next couple of weeks. So maybe to help you get your Miggy jersey or your Latte Lath jersey or whatever. But so with the launch of that new podcast, we're actually going to be expanding a bit. We're essentially starting a network that we're going to be calling the Scarves and Spikes community. We're still going to be bringing you guys like the same content that you love, the same stuff. We're still going to have our normal shows on Wednesday, like we're doing right now. We'll still have MLS Monday. We're also going to be doing we haven't really come up with a name yet, but kind of a venting show, a show to celebrate, vent, gripe, yell and scream and joy, hopefully more often than not, on Sunday evenings. So that will be just all Atlanta United, and it'll be about the match or matches of that weekend. Pre-match shows, takeaway videos at the end of the games. So we're still going to be bringing you all the Atlanta content that we've been doing. Spaces, yeah, on Twitter /X, whatever. But
yeah, don't call it X.
Yeah, whatever. But this is just opening the door for us to be able to cover even more soccer. We have Club World Cup coming in a couple of months. You have the World Cup coming next year. And we have announcements, for things, like I said, very soon in the future as well. So we wanted to create like a network where you guys can get all of your soccer news, or at least as much as possible. So nothing's changed as far as the current schedule. Still scarvesandspikes.com, same channel. When the season starts, we'll have that, like I said, that kind of Sunday night ranting, celebrating show. Come back for MLS Monday. But the reason we chose to call it the Scarves and Spikes community as opposed to network or nation or whatever is because of y'all. We started this podcast, and y'all know the story. A lot of y'all know the story. It came from Spaces, right? We had Spaces, and people would get on there and they would just have their moment to just talk about how they felt about the games. And that kind of evolved into this show a couple of years ago. And one of the things that we always wanted to keep was the sense of community. We wanted you guys to be able to chat with us, talk with us, vent with us, celebrate with us, scream with us, watch games with us, everything. So that's why we chose to call it Scarves and Spikes Community. And we're super thankful for y'all. We've built this community together with y'all, so it belongs to each of y'all as much as it is ours. We truly, truly appreciate it. You've probably seen this little thing down at the bottom with the store. That is some of the new merchandise that we have going up on the store. That kind of has an alternate logo that we're using for, again, merch. Some of our videos will have it. But you've got, new t-shirts on there, tank tops, hats. Got to highlight the llama shirt because everybody needs a llama over a goat. But phone cases, jackets, kids' shirts, a new beer glass, patches, the whole 9 yards. So we appreciate it. This is we wanted to offer like some new merch because it's been a minute since we were able to offer anything really new. It's an exciting time for Atlanta United. It's an exciting time for soccer in the country. So as part of us expanding our coverage, kind of creating a network, this was kind of an easy introduction to that. So we truly, truly appreciate it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like that's why everything that we do, we want to make it live. We started doing some videos like a long time ago that weren't live. But like, this is boring. Like, it's just three of us just talking here and seeing these comments. These comments today have just been hilarious, especially today. So I just keep laughing. I wish I could just like point to all. Well, I guess I could point to all of them, but yeah, they're great. But that's what we love about it, is just being able to interact with everybody. That's why pretty much everything that we do is interactive here, and that's what we're going to stick with and continue to. And as we've grown, we've had a couple people, like Brian says, he's a day one subscriber. I mean, we had like 4 or 5 people when we originally started doing the podcast, and the Spaces kept slowly growing, and we've got amazing stories through Spaces throughout the years and the podcast as well. And we're just going to keep going. And the hope, the hope is, since we've started this, Atlanta United has not been very good, right? We've got a couple playoff appearances, some very short playoff appearances, and overall some mediocre seasons. So come on, this is the year, right? And don't say the Scarves and Spikes is the reason why this team has sucked for the past couple of years, because I've said that in my head a couple of times. Like, is it us? Is it our fault? But no, we're excited for the season for sure.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all. So yeah, that the merch is one thing. If it's something that you care about, hey, by all means, you get the code down there that gives you a little bit off, free shipping on pretty much everything except for the stuff that's made of glass, because I don't know, shipping companies don't like, glass anyway. But if you're not already, patreon.com/scarves and spikes, we have content going up there. That is, it's just a fun community. We have the Discord. Everybody's in there having a good time. We're talking about Atlanta, sharing news, everything else. So if you're not in there already, go to patreon.com/scarves and spikes. And then of course, scarvesandspikes.com. Because again, it's always going to be Atlanta United stuff, but we're going to be doing more MLS stuff. We're going to be doing Club World Cup stuff. We're going to be doing the World Cup stuff. And whatever else comes our way. We're trying to do more local Southeastern soccer coverage as well. So the whole 9 yards, and we truly appreciate it. So y'all are awesome.
Let February 22nd start right
Yeah.
now. Like we need games, right? This
We do.
preseason stuff's cool. I slept through the last preseason game. My bad. It not being on today was good because I didn't miss anything. But let's get the real stuff going here, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like Atlanta had a game today that you're not really going to find out much about. And I can't remember. Yeah, Gray said slam that subscribe button. Please subscribe to YouTube.
No news is good news. Honestly, like if you really think about it, if there's no news, that means nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
Well, if nothing bad happened, then we move to the next preseason game. That's how I look at it.
Orlando scored at least once because, yeah, like Bro Show blog said, they did post on X, on Twitter, the video of their goal, which was a header. But I'm hearing from someone else that it ended 1-1.
Yeah. Then that's what we got.
I don't know who scored for Atlanta.
Yeah.
If you had to guess, who would it be?
Saba.
Okay.
That's a good guess. That's a good guess.
I'm guessing Silva.
Okay, Silva. I mean, Silva's a good shout, Colonel. Yeah, this is part of we wanted to share the very minimal information we do know, which is at least what we've heard is that it was 1-1. I don't know. I kind of like Calen Togashi.
Yeah.
I kind of like, I've been very high on him. I think, just his chaotic, energetic nature has been really, really fun to watch. And even when he's not scoring, and I'm glad he scored in Birmingham, he is moving all the time. He is constantly making center backs like second guess what they're doing with their entire life. And so that's half the battle, because you do that, you open up space for a guy like Miranchuk, Saba, Miggy, and so when Latte is not there, having a guy like Togashi is a good thing to have. And then don't forget about Jamal Tiare. So, but yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, I wish we had more news about Orlando to tell y'all, but that's just how it was. It was a very closed door affair. Yes, no injury news.
Yeah, no injury news. Colonel, yeah, spaces are continuing, so don't
Yep.
worry about that. We've got that going. And yeah, Grace said Brad scored a penalty. So I mean, that's got to be true. It's 100%. Brad scored the penalty.
Kiel asking, will Latte Lath be the penalty kicker? Probably.
You got a lot of choices this time around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's a
because
good news. You're never winning a penalty shootout again.
Oh, well, we've watched quite a few bad penalty shootouts over the past couple of years, and screaming that a player's missing here. Brooks Lennon isn't going to take one anytime soon. Got enough depth there.
Hey, that's the one thing he could be practicing the entire time he was out injured. He might come back and be the best penalty taker in the entire history of the universe. I'm just saying. You never know. I'm excited for Brooks to be back.
Why
not? So let's talk about, I know we're kind of jumping around, but let's talk about Latte Lath. So the deal is official. You got the video that comes out today, and he's inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and the dude is like awestruck. And we were talking about it in our Discord, but don't think for a second that Atlanta United doesn't use Mercedes-Benz Stadium as a selling point. You have, when it's open completely, 70,000 people there to watch you play soccer as a player. You're on, whether other countries and leagues want to accept it or not, you're on a world stage when you play there. Look at Jamal Tiare last year with the Pink Panther goal. No offense to Jamal Tiare or that game in general. That game sucked until he made that play at the very end of the match. And that thing hit world headlines. And it's not just because it was the Pink Panther goal, but how the stadium reacted is just as important as what he did. So yeah, Atlanta is going to use that place as a selling point. You're there, right? You think you're coming to MLS and you're not going to have, notoriety, and you're not going to be out in the spotlight as much. Bet. Let's check out Mercedes-Benz Stadium and see how many people are going to have their eyes on you. So he's there and he's like, I can't wait to play here. They have his name up on the Halo board. He's talking about how exciting it is. He's like, I want to play right now. Like, I'm ready to go. So I think, it's going to be asked. Like, there was a lot going on with Middlesbrough.
Wait, hold on. I'm glad Henry made the face and it wasn't just me. Did you say we're going to be ass?
I heard you say that.
Okay.
We both heard you say it's going to be ass.
No, we're not doing that. Rewind.
No, that's what you said.
We're going to be, no, I said asked.
Play the tape
of ass.
VAR. Play the tape.
Yeah. Go back. No.
I'm sure the chat will back Henry.
Yeah, did he or did he not say ass?
Yeah, I mean that's. But Tyler, I agree though. Like as far as using the stadium, because look, remember Miranchuk last year? Like they showed those same videos of him standing, in the end zone and the, against the glass over there. I mean, he just looked at it and like. I'm sure you both have been there when the stadium's empty, right? Like,
yep.
I think I've been there for the tour. I did the tour when there was no game going on, the tour of the whole stadium. And when you go in there, especially when it's empty, I think it's even crazier when it's full, because you just look and there's just so many seats and it's just so quiet. And it's like, man, when this place is filled, it's going to be wild here. And then that's your first experience of it. Is like if it's empty and then you go and then everyone's there and it's wild. And to think about, even what a lot of players have experienced here, because usually the home opener is always filled, right? The home opener's always going to have, 60,000 people there. But if you can continue to get, the stadium full, you give the team a reason to keep opening it up, right? Because they can open up the stadium and bring more people in if needed. But if you continue to do this all season, that place is going to be electric, because all we hear about is, Mercedes-Benz being a fortress and blah, blah, blah. And then you've seen, the Leagues Cup attendance last year, right? And the video that went viral, there's like 13 people in the stands watching the Leagues Cup game and people, what's going on with Atlanta United, right? Like, nobody likes Leagues Cup and all of that. We got to get back to that, right? Because you just expected that stadium when anytime you watched a game in 18 and 19, it was always loud, right? You could hear the chants, you can hear the crowd, everything. That's what hopefully this season brings back. Because again, the vibes have been down, right? And unfortunately, and like people get worn out when the team just isn't good, and was for a long time. But like I said, Calen, like the hope all of a sudden started coming, and it was on the road, right? Because they had to go to Montreal. But when they came back, even though they lost game 1 to Miami, right? Like people could have just been like, yeah, we're getting swept, we're not going to that game. The fans still showed up to that game. And it wasn't just all to only see Messi play. Some of it was. But even
but not
when
many, though.
Right. But even when that Miami game where Messi didn't show up, right? Like there was a lot of Miami crowd there the season prior. That whole crowd turned to Atlanta United fans. And that place was insanely loud a few seasons ago in that Miami game. And that playoff game, I wasn't there, but I was driving home and I heard that through my stereo in my car, and the car was shaking on how loud that place was. You guys were there, so you can talk more of it. But I got what was it, Spider-Man, the Peter tingles all over the place when that goal happened, because it felt like it was 2018, 2019 with Almiron passing to Joseph Martinez for the game winner, right?
And that's insane. Yeah.
Right. That's what we're going. That's hopefully where we're going. And it's not just one game. It's an entire, February all the way until December.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole thing. The stadium is one thing because it is an imposing stadium. It's a big stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. And I've said it. It's, to me, one of the most beautiful in North America. To me, the most beautiful one. Of course, I have a little bit of bias. But also, 70,000 people filling Mercedes-Benz Stadium is insane. And like you just said, like the playoff game against Miami was the loudest I have ever heard that stadium, and it was just shocking, electrifying, awesome. I don't. There's no word to describe it. It's just an amazing feeling. And when Sean De Silva scored the winner, like everybody's eardrums just exploded of the noise that was in that stadium. And it was that the atmosphere was incredible, and even more so. Take that into the final whistle. We didn't even hear the final whistle. Did you hear the final whistle, Tyler?
Nope.
I didn't hear the final whistle.
Nobody did.
Nobody. Even
Players
Daniel
did.
Rios, who was on the field, didn't hear the final whistle. He just kept going. So it's that noise, and it wasn't just like, oh, it's Messi's in town, so it's Miami fans. No, that noise from Sean De Silva scoring the winner, and then the final whistle of Atlanta staying alive. Those were Atlanta fans. Those were people there for Atlanta United. And I think that's something to be very proud of. I think that is a huge testament to just this team's fan base, and to the work that the club has done to kind of build something that the fans can get around. Even though last season was turbulent, and even though there was some low points, some very low points last season, the way that it finished off like that is something huge. And I know that this season things are going to be better, and it's going to be, we're going to have more of those games. We're going to have more of that atmosphere, and I want to live more of that. I want y'all to blow my eardrums out every single game. Won't be fun for my eardrums. It'll be fun for me.
But it's that extra, like that bit of energy, right? And it's something that you can't really put into words. And when you go and you've been a part of it, you don't forget it. And I think that's a lot of what drew people into this team, even going back to Bobby Dodd. But then you get into the Benz, and I mean, we talk about the Sean De Silva goal against Miami. Yeah, Dom. Just begging for Dom to come back.
If that happens, no one's going to believe it.
No, but you're going to be the one screaming the loudest.
No, nobody, if that ever does happen, seriously, no one will ever believe it happens because of me. The moose that cried, Dom.
And confuse an entire nation.
Sorry, Mike Bell.
But no, I mean, we left out of there. What was that? October or November? I can't remember now. But when he scored that goal, and me, Henry, and Sydney were walking out, and we were like, it sucks that no matter what, we're not going to be back in this building this year, because at the time, like, it was mathematically impossible for Atlanta to have another playoff match, regardless if they had won or not. And it's just, it's intoxicating. It really is. And so I can only imagine what it means to be a guy who is there that just scored the goal, to hear that kind of eruption of noise for him. So yeah, I mean, going back to that video, he's got a reason to be excited. They're selling it well, but just wait until February 22nd when you see it in action. Like, it's a totally different ball game. And he also has the added benefit that Miggy came back, and a crap ton of people are going to be there for Miguel Almiron. And I'm so happy. I cannot wait for that moment that he gets on the ball, running into space, and the way that everybody is going to be on the edge of their seat. So, man, I'm excited. I'm excited Latte Lath is here. I'm excited, everything about this season. You have a reason to be more than cautiously optimistic at this point, in my opinion.
I mean, you're seeing the tweets. People are jumping back on. I mean, a lot of people were out on season tickets, right? It was multiple reasons, right? The increase in tickets, right? That was a huge thing last summer when I was there. There was the protest about increasing prices, but it was also just the quality of the product, right? And it was just a bad combination at that time in the summer. It was, you're paying more and you're getting less, and hopefully now you're getting more. I mean, everybody kept saying, it's like, oh, they're not spending money. And like, I understand, and we said this, it was like they weren't tanking the season, but obviously, and they weren't rushing into things, right? They still had to get a manager, they still had to get a general manager, and they wanted to, obviously talk about these with the general manager, with the coach, the manager, whatever, to what they wanted. And it was frustrating. It was a frustrating fall, right? Late summer, fall. I mean, there were just some games where it was like, we came on here and it was like, what else do we talk about here, right? I mean, it's the same thing. It's limited talent. Did you have one true DP on in the lineup? What can you do, right? And there's a lot of teams, unfortunately, that are used to this conversation for years, right? That don't spend money, right? I mean, yeah, Philly didn't spend money, but they still, usually had some pretty good results. But there's other teams that are consistently, down in the table, and their teams just don't spend, unfortunately, right? And we have not been used to that for a long time. And now you're going in basically with everything full except your U22 spots. But I mean, you've got a very talented lineup here. Now the question is, how quick can they mesh? How quick can they get things going? Because I know we've only got a couple weeks left in the season. I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but we talked about it a few weeks ago. This team has a lot of home games to start the year, and obviously this team has to win road games this year. We improved on it last season, right? We had, was it a record year of road points, or it was second? Maybe?
Yeah, I think it was second. I think it was still behind 2018, but you had, I think it was like 3 less points earned on the road than you did at home.
Yeah. So like it happened, right? But obviously still you need to win your home games here. So it's very important that this team meshes quickly because you got some big matchups coming up. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about these games on Spaces and on here, and let's bring on get the points, right? Bring the points, bring the celebration. Winning Wednesday, whatever we called it. I forget. We didn't win often, so we kind of forgot what the name of it was there for a while, right?
Kind of went by the wayside.
Yeah. Is it going to be a Super Sunday, or is it going to be a sad Sunday? That's what we'll be finding out, since we'll be talking about it on Sunday now. And Edgar said we're going to win MLS Cup champions, and somehow someone put in Henry put out a survey, and they were asking us to shave our beards or our heads. So I said I will never go bald. I can't go bald. All right, I'm not going bald. Can't do that. There's no going. Yeah, you don't have a lot of options there, sir.
Yeah.
So. I will shave it down far, but I need no, that would not happen. But I said I would, I would probably come into town for the parade if it happened, and at the parade, whoever wants to shave my head, we can do it. They shaved my head during COVID, like when we didn't have, all the haircut places shut down. I have a video of my kids shaving my head, so why not shave it again if we win the championship? I'm not Walter Whiting, Edgar. That's not happening.
Why not?
I don't have an RV to make anything in there, so I can't be full Walter White.
Yeah. So we have, now that it's official, we have some people referring to it as Slam, and I'm quite sure that's what Mike Conti is gonna yell and scream on the radio, and I can't wait to hear it. But the other version is Llamas, which I saw the shirt. If you looked at the screenshot or the screen share earlier, we do have a T-shirt up that you can go get. So either you look at it as Latte, Lath, Alexi Miranchuk, Almiron, and Saba, or you look at it as Latte, Lath, Lennon, Alexi. Oh no, I got it wrong. Sorry. Amador, Miranchuk, Almiron, Saba. So it fits. It fits for a couple of different groups. But now that it's all official, what are you fully expecting out of this group? And you can include Amador and Lennon if you want to, that version of the Llamas, or just the attacking four. But what are y'all kind of expecting? Because I know we keep throwing out like, oh, MLS Cup. We keep throwing out, silverware, top 3, top 4, whatever. But what are y'all kind of looking for with this group now that they're all actually officially official?
Top 5 offense in the league.
I like it.
I'm not going like, okay, so who's gonna say top 3? I'm
with that investment, top 3. I mean,
Well, now that Cucho's gone, yeah.
especially, yeah, now that Cucho's gone, now that, LA Galaxy's kind of disarmed themselves at this point by, Jovic getting sold, which is something they had to do, but I digress. And you've spent over 40 million in your attack at this point. Like, you're attacking llamas, like they've got to go ham, man. They've got to go crazy. And like we talked with Calen, like,
Attacking llamas.
hey,
There's so many options here. I can't wait.
but I know that you don't want to put too much pressure on the guy, but he's a record-breaking signing, and there are so many doubters out there that are like, oh my gosh, Atlanta's overspending on this championship player. It's like, oh, whatever. I know that he fits the game model, and I know that he can do well, but it's up to him at this point now to perform and to live up to those expectations and to show that he's worth the 22 million that Atlanta paid for him. So 22 million plus, because stuff, but still. So yeah, I'm gonna say top 3 offense in the league, and I'm gonna say Latte Lath. My bold prediction is Latte Lath wins the Golden Boot.
I mean, you have to partially expect it, right? Considering like what we talked about with Calen earlier and what you just said, the amount of money he's coming in for, the expectations are going to be there, and anything can happen, right? With an attack or with an individual player in terms of just like how productive they are. But like, it does feel like it's planned out in a way that makes a lot more sense than maybe some of the prior versions of an attacking four that we've seen before. It seems like the pieces just really fit together. You have Miranchuk, who we know has the talent. He has the capability. And Garth said in that chat that we had with him the other day, what did they do? What did defenses do with Miranchuk in 2024? The moment he got the ball, he was swarmed and he had to pass the ball away. He had to give it away. Now, if a defense decides to swarm Alexei Miranchuk, then they've got Miguel Almiron to deal with on one side, Saba to deal with on one side, and then Latte Lath up top to deal with. They can't do that anymore. So it opens up so many possibilities. And yeah, I mean, I think you have to expect, like, I'm with you. I think it's top 3. I think it has to be top 3 in the league because it's just that good on paper.
I agree. But I want to see what the defense does as well, right? I mean, obviously having a great offense is amazing, but the defense is going to be just as important, right? Williams and Gregerson, can they continue to do what they did there? Can they both stay healthy, right? Obviously that's important. Gregerson staying healthy here, getting an off season to, rest, get healthy here. Obviously very important. Can Amador still continue to do what he did last year, right? Like, the expectations were so high on him, right? And you beat me to it with the Miranchuk, because on Spaces it was, is this guy a bust? Like, people started asking that question every single game, and it started growing. And while it's like, right, you understand, like you said, that there wasn't a lot of people for him to pass it to, right? The talent around him to get the ball there for them to score, it started growing, right? Like, you're telling a friend, Miranchuk's kind of overrated. And then he tells a friend. And then next thing you know, you've got, 20 people on Spaces going, I think we overpaid for this guy. What is he doing? And now you hopefully see it all come together in a couple weeks or in a couple months, as it fully develops and it's, hopefully kicking into high gear. You're going to know why they threw all the money at him and that he's, one of the best creators in the league here. And that's what's exciting. And then hopefully the last part of it is Brad Guzan continues to be Brad Guzan for at least one more year. Because I was thinking about this, Henry, we were at the Signia a year ago, and we asked a couple questions to everybody in the crowd. Was Gonzalo Pineda going to finish the season, right? Was Carlos Bocanegra going to finish the season? Would Brad Guzan finish the season? And here we are again, and 2 out of the 3 are gone. Now the question is, in potentially one of Brad's last, I mean, I don't know how long this guy is going to keep going, right? But can Brad, potentially in his last season, go out there and take this team to a championship, right? And that'd be a pretty cool story for him because he has stuck around for, while he was here for the early good times, he's been here for some real bad times. And some of those bad times weren't his fault, right? Those bad times were injuries for him. But, he had 2 really bad injuries in back-to-back years. But last year, where I think a lot of people expected him to lose that job, now we've got it, right? Now this is a chance for him to lead this team into a championship, because what he did in that playoff series against Miami, right? All 3 games is impressive. And we're going to need that if we're going to go all the way into the playoffs, right? The entire season, get into the playoffs and run the gauntlet here, because once you get to those single elimination games, you're going to need him. And I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Bruno said, I'm sad Brad didn't win Rookie of the Year last year. Such a bright future. So I guess moving towards, and we'll keep carrying on the conversation because it all fits in now, especially that everybody's kind of here for preseason. But you had Orlando today. Not going to get a whole lot out of that, but Saturday they play New England down in Florida. Again, I'll be there. So if you're not following Scarves and Spikes on social media here, make sure you're subscribed, all that good stuff, because I'll be down there covering the match. But Henry, I guess we'll start with you. What are you kind of looking for in this New England match? What are you looking for Atlanta to do differently or change or do the same?
Just keep developing Ronnie Dyla's tactics and, an increased understanding at this point of what he's expecting of each player, and for them to really step into those roles and know that basically just know their job within the team, right? Know how he wants to progress the ball. Know that you always have to try to look for the forward option. Know that this is a team that wants to move quickly and be deadly on fast transition moments. This is a team about speed. Almiron is fast. Lath is fast. Saba is fast. The whole point of this team is being fast, and so we know that those 3 have speed. But now the rest of the team has to help them get the ball in more dangerous areas, and that takes keeping your confidence when you're in possession, not getting anxious, and being able to move the ball quickly from back to front. And they've been working on that. And Dyla himself admitted after the Birmingham game that he saw an improvement from the Chattanooga game in terms of progressing the ball. So it's just continue working on that and kind of figuring out who clicks, who works right. Continuing to see some of those on the field relationships develop, and hopefully have this team working a little bit more like a machine, and where they're coordinated and they're efficient and just better overall. So yeah, I'm gonna hopefully we see the pieces start coming together on Saturday.
Tommy, what about you?
I'm excited. That's pretty much all I could say is get it all together, get the pieces together and see what can happen. And I mean, that Bruno, adding Mascara in there can he stay here? Like, will he stay? Right? There are rumors about him on his way out. Will that really happen? But if he could stay, that's important, right? And it doesn't hurt the salary cap to keep him. You could hold on to him for a year, hopefully, grow the interest, because it did. Like, we grew a season before this. He started coming on, right? And he was scoring goals and it was exciting. But can he continue to do that, right? With a better supporting cast around him?
This season is going to be a job interview for those 3, because I think all 3 of them, their contracts are up at the end of this year. So I know Mascara for sure. I don't know about the rest, but I think all 3 of them. So look, if they want to stay on, they've got to show this season that they can be serviceable on the bench and come in and, okay, Miggy is tired, Saba is tired, Latte is tired, that y'all can just step in and that y'all can just step in and continue putting pressure on that back line with the speed. Like the first group of llamas, the llamas. Hang on, I got to say this with a straight face. The starting attacking llamas wore your opponents down. You gotta keep pressing on. Okay, you gotta keep that going. And if they can do that, then they should. I wouldn't mind keeping them on a little bit more. I like them. I like having fast players. I like that they're technical, but man, they need to have some improvement this season.
Yeah, for sure. One other kind of rumor that had popped up earlier this week. This was from, and I might butcher his name, Antonio Petruzzuolo from Italy.
This is why we need Sydney here. Sydney always nails the names.
Yeah,
right? He gets it. He always says the name's cooler than all of us can. So, Sydney, if you're watching right now, dial into the hotline and say the name for us.
I'm sorry.
You at least added a little flair to it.
He added a little Borat to it. It's okay.
You had something going on there. I liked it. Anyway, according to him, Atlanta was interested.
According to who?
That guy.
Okay.
Ask Henry.
I was trying.
He was saying that Atlanta's interested in Portuguese left back Marco Rui. And he said it was for a 2-year deal. The guy, had 227 appearances with Napoli, and they mutually agreed to terminate his contract. I will say this. From what I've heard, there's nothing to this. But I think when you look at it at face value, a Serie A veteran who's making $3.5 million a year has his contract mutually terminated, so they agreed to part ways, whatever. He is going to come to Atlanta to be a backup, probably, to Pedro Almiron. And they would have to be, considering how much money Atlanta spent, probably have to be on like some kind of minimum contracts, something small. He's not going to make $3.5 million a year, period. It's not going to happen. Just that right there should be a big red flag. And I'm not saying that the guy that reported it, not saying he, is lying or anything like that. I think maybe there was some agent shenanigans going on in the background, whatever. That's just my opinion. I'm speculating, but it's an educated guess. I just don't see this happening. I'm not saying that Atlanta's not looking for, outside back depth or defenders or whatever. They have a really good one in Chonqui, who they might just say, hey, let's go ahead and bump him up and have him be the backup to Amador. I would not be mad at that. But they're not going to go spend what they would have to spend to pay a guy like Marco Rui. It's just not going to happen. I would be totally shocked.
So fun update to that transfer saga. Fabrizio Romano reported that FC Dallas made an approach for Marco Rui. And then I think like 2 hours later, Tom Bogert's like, they haven't held any talks for him. That is not true. So Bogert versus Fabrizio. But yeah, just it's probably some agent talk. It's probably, trying to get him another job somewhere. And I mean, look at Atlanta spending all this money. Like the agent's like, yeah, that's got to be the easy pick, right? And like a couple of years ago, where Atlanta was connected with Rossi, and that absolutely had no legs at all. So
I don't know. Doug, I think, disagrees with that.
That was a saga I will never forget.
Yeah, it was my favorite saga in the world. It was absolutely great. And it was like, I remember them like asking Boca like on like the pregame show about it. And like, you could just tell he was just like, please stop asking me about this. Like, it's not real. Just stop asking me. Jimmy Butler to the Warriors. Wow. Our chat's great. Just breaking news. I wish we were like live. I saw podcasts that were like live that like announced the Luka trade while they were on it. Like that was amazing.
Watch everything fall apart in real time.
Yeah, that's what I love. I love drama.
My favorite meme I saw of that, I shared it with y'all, but in the Discord, but it was Duolingo. And like when you make a mistake and when you're doing Duolingo, you're learning another language. And he goes, He's like, "Oh, you've made a mistake," and it was that, and they tagged Dallas, and it was just like, I don't know. That was my favorite meme that came out. I have no dog in this game. I could care less. I'm not an NBA guy, but I understand how stupid it was.
Yeah.
So to see something like Duolingo get involved, I was like, this is good. I like this. I like when we break other walls.
Really quickly, I want to hit on Bruno's question. Can Chong-Kui homegrown deal be advanced to start this year? They, in theory, they could if they wanted to re-sign him to a contract that starts a little earlier, kind of like they did with Matt Edwards a little bit. But there's another option. So new roster rules dropped today. And among those roster rules is a 31st roster slot for players. And I might just completely butcher this explanation, but this is how I understand it. It is a player that is loaned season long to a lower division team, but that player can start for the MLS team or can play for the MLS team in cup games. So in theory, you could put Chong-Kui on that slot. And then when Atlanta United goes into Leagues Cup, you could have him, you wouldn't need to use the 4 call-ups on him for him to be in Leagues Cup because he'd be eligible through that 31st slot. Now, if you want him in league games, then yeah, you would have to use the call-ups. But essentially, it's kind of a way to skirt having to use those 4 call-ups, during Leagues Cup.
6 now.
It's 6?
6 now. 6 call-ups.
Oh, that's great, actually.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep,
well,
yep.
yeah,
Bumped
it's even
up.
better then. But yeah, I mean, if you find yourself in need, like Pedro Amador, maybe you want to give him some rest during Leagues Cup. There you go. Leagues Cup is going to be interesting again because we already know the 3 opponents. It's going to be Pineda's Atlas and I forgot the other ones, but I know Pineda's Atlas is there. It's another 2 Liga MX teams, but
that game's going to break the fan base. It could break the fan base depending how that goes.
It'll be interesting. It'll be because it was either that or it was going to be the derby with Yakimakis. Those were the 2 options.
That's another one.
Why do familiar faces keep coming back?
Well, that they set it up for that. You got to create these storylines, and
that's true. This is assuming that Pineda makes it to the summer. Let's see. Hopefully he does.
I mean, that's real bad if he doesn't.
Yeah,
he's a great guy, but hopefully he does.
We shall see. We shall see. All right. Again, scarvesandspikes.com. Y'all go check out the website. If you're not part of our Patreon, patreon.com/scarvesandspikes. It'll get you access to the Discord. We have stuff that goes up just on the Patreon as well. Lots of good times happening over there. And go to the store. You go to scarvesandspikes.com. Up at the top, there's a link to the store, and there's a bunch of new merchandise. If you missed our explanation about it, just go back to right after our Calen Carr interview and go check it out because it's a lot to repeat. But yeah, lots going on. Lots more announcements to come too. We have a lot of stuff that we're building up. Super excited. Can't wait to announce it. We just got to wait until the right time. But yeah, we appreciate you hanging out with us.
Tyler, a latte going on?
A latte.
A latte? Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Right. I like it. By the way, that coffee you got me, that's good stuff.
It's good. I'm
very
glad
good.
You like it, man.
Yeah, very good. I appreciate
straight from the homeland, straight from the motherland.
Yeah. Yep. It had the flavor. It was quite nice. And with that,
hit the music.
There it is.
Oh, I thought you were gonna start playing the Terminator music. Dun 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 dun.
No, this has been the point when I show you my eye and everybody's like, "Oh my god!" Yeah.
No, this isn't Jeepers Creepers. We don't want to see the end of that movie. Eyes scare me.
Do you?
I can't watch people like touch their eye. I told the story in the Discord, but I had to get my my retina taken apart. It's like I can't wear contacts or anything like that. So watching, and no, Omar, stop with the Kirk Cousins talk. All right. Well, here, since this is the end of the thing, Kirk Cousins, if he hid the injury, screw that guy. Get him out of here. Like, he didn't want to lose the spot to the young kid, right? That was going to just take a spot because he never was going to get it back. But if the team hit it, they're in real big trouble because there's there's gambling, rules out there because if, the team hid Kirk Cousins' injury, that's a huge fine and possible loss of draft picks and like large fines because you can't hide injuries like that. The gambling world is very important to the NFL. So, and they did that a couple of years ago with Bijan. Like he had a headache and they didn't report that he had a headache and they got in trouble for that. So long explanation. We'll, the Scarves and Spikes community will have a Falcons podcast at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I just feel like people swearing.
On the Discord.
I will never do an Atlanta Falcons Spaces. You can't pay me enough money in the world to moderate Falcons fans after a loss. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. Like, I would rather go bald for a year.
I'll start it up. I'll kick it off. I'm going to stir the pot, and then I'm going to be like, have at it, guys. And it's going to be like the Hunger Games.
No. Never. That's my nightmare. With that, thank you for coming to Falcons Talk. Thanks, Omar, for ruining my night.
All right, y'all. We do appreciate it.